Hello, Dippers, and welcome to Volume 39 of Hysteria. As always, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Saucy Pod. Listen to us on iTunes and Spotify. On this week's show, we have an Hysteria tournament. The main season is winding down. Got Fletcher on the fly. Instead of Fletcher on the fly, we're going to have my co-host with me, as always, Fletcher Hoig.
I know I've been pretty critical of Westbrook on this show, but I do have to hand it to him. 2020 is pretty fucking impressive, actually.
It is impressive. Only been done twice ever, so that's how you know something's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, we get some more impressive stuff on this show, hopefully. But before that, let's drop the noise.
Humpday. Who's Hysteria?
A Sauce on the Side production.
So we'll start the show off with some rich news. Despite having one national title, John Calipari had to receive a lifetime deal from University of Kentucky. This comes right after he was offered a 6-year, $48 million deal for the UCLA Bruins, which is less than he makes now. Once again, this proves that in college basketball, as opposed to professional sports, being relevant is more important than actually winning. Fletcher, I think this is stupid. What do you think?
We could really do a whole show about this whole Calipari Kentucky deal. It blows my mind. John Calipari just basically got the deal of a lifetime. You know, to me, it shows a level of desperateness by the University of Kentucky. For all accounts and measures, you know, Cal's pretty much underachieved. At the University of Kentucky, they don't hang SEC championships and Sweet 16 banners. You know, they judge you by the amount of titles you win. And he's only won one. He's done a better job at sending guys to the NBA versus winning at Kentucky. He has, you know, he's got youth coming in all the time, so he has to reteach and have everybody relearn everything. But, you know, that's a part of the game, and he kind of helped transcend the game towards that mold that it is now with the one and done. And everybody else kind of caught up to him, the Coach K's and Bill Selfs. They said, well, we'll take on one and dones too then, hell. But Kentucky, it's a move, you know, that eventually is going to make you trapped. Because let's say that Cal turns into Bobby Knight of Texas Tech, you know.
Yeah.
What are you going to do then? Because if you fire him, you still got to pay him. He's still going to get paid. It just blows my mind from every level. Congrats to Calipari on getting the deal and getting paid. Who knows what his annual salary is going to be. I think originally he was making $7.5 million before this new contract was set in, which is over half of what
it was more than that. I know it was at least $10 million, or at least $11 million, because when the Brewers offered him the 6-year, $48 million, I heard that was $3 million less than he's making right now. So it's at least $11 million.
So
highest paid in basketball.
Yeah, I was going to say, based on his current salary before this new lifetime contract, he was actually making more than half of the NBA coaches, head coaches in the NBA. So, and you think about it, he's underachieved compared to Tom Izzo, Coach K. I guess he's on par with Bill Self, maybe, although Bill Self has continued regular season success like no coach has ever had. So it's kind of bizarre. I think University of Kentucky felt a little threatened and a little insecure by UCLA amid the potential rumors, and they said, you know what, let's just go ahead and lock this up forever, and they signed him. So lifetime deal. He was already making more than NBA head coaches, but the NCAA still doesn't believe that, you know, players can get any piece of the pie. They can't use their own likeness or, you know, use their own name or image to profit for themselves, but yet CBS can make a Zion camera and use his name right there to follow him around all over the court. So we could really do a whole show about this whole Calipari lifetime deal, but it's a great deal for Cal. Ridiculous offer by Kentucky. I think Cal, by and large, is underachieved from what the expectations they had for him. What's stopping this deal from being bad, you know, in 10 years? What if Cal gets old and rigid and, you know, can't contribute? Or what if, you know, he has some kind of age-related disorder that prevents him from being able to coach, and he steps down and you're still responsible for that salary? So just not much to like about it all the way around, except for Calipari getting his, I guess.
Yeah, he talked about how Cal basically has underachieved at University of Kentucky, only getting the one championship. Not many Final Fours either. And I talked about this on Monday's show with Drake on Tossing the Side. They're basically, as of like 2000, there are like 4 programs in the country where getting to the Final Four or getting to the Elite Eight is not good enough. And those are Duke, UNC, Kansas, and Kentucky.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you get to the Final Four, if you want to consider that a success for one of those 4 programs, you can, I guess. I wouldn't, because with the way things have gone with those 4, if you don't win a championship every year, it's basically a failure. Yet, he still gets this deal. We see Coach K has won a lot more titles than Kyrie had, like basically infinitely more. He also had a lifetime deal. But Duke has won 1 since, I think, 2010 or something like that. Calipari's won 1 ever. Is this more of a sign of college basketball, college sports in general, saying that just being relevant every year is more important than winning championships?
Well, Cal's done a lot for them compared to where they were. When he left Memphis to take over Kentucky, it was really kind of in shambles, kind of the way you're looking at UCLA right now, or maybe even Arizona. And he really has lifted them. But here's the thing. They're going to generate revenue stream because they're always going to get big recruits, and then they're always going to get national primetime games, and then occasionally they're going to make deep runs. I'm sure he's got another title or 2 in him before he's done coaching entirely. But you know, you look at what you add versus what you gain. If you give Calipari, I think, and what they're saying, and if you give Calipari a lifetime contract, he's always going to get those recruits, and therefore he's always going to get those big-time games. So they're looking at a revenue stream that's locked in place, more or less. I think that's kind of what they're looking at. But you just got to wonder if his body of success really warrants that. In my opinion, I do think they've underachieved. Even getting to the Final Four is almost underachieving because – well, 2 things. You judge great coaches, great players on their titles, no matter what sport it is. Tom Brady with Super Bowls, Michael and LeBron, you know, with their NBA Finals and championships. The second thing is, in college, you're built for dynasties. Professional sports, guys got maybe 7 to 10 years, maybe even 5 to 6, 7 peak years, and then they phase out, and your teams get bad again. College sports are built for dynasties. You win, you get good recruits, and you keep winning, and it's a cycle that goes back and forth. So, I mean, Cal's got both of those things going for him, I guess, but I still think he underachieves, and I still think that the contract was a desperate move by Kentucky to maintain what they have that will ultimately wind up costing them in the end.
Yeah, he probably had underachieved, and that's a great segue into our next topic, which is the NCAA tournament. This past Sunday, Duke lost to Michigan State in the Elite Eight. Like I just said, I think the whole season was a failure because, like I said, one of the 4 programs, you don't win at all is a failure. Especially with Duke with this year, with how dominant Zion was, how exciting Zion was to watch, and that great recruiting class, not winning at all is definitely a failure. How do you feel about Duke's season?
Well, Duke, first, they had 2 freshman All-Americans with Zion and R.J. Barrett. Do you know the other 2 freshmen to ever do that?
Hakeem Olajuwon and somebody?
No, I was guessing when I first heard that before I heard the answer.
Patrick Ewing and somebody?
No, I thought it was going to be Anthony Davis and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. I was wrong. It was DeMarcus Cousins and John Wall, who also, I don't even think they made the Final Four, but they didn't win it all either.
They made the Final Four.
You talk about 2 underachieving teams and then an underachieving coach, in my opinion, with Cal. You know, Duke, sure, they lost their starting center, but we all know there was one piece of that team that really made them a championship contender, and that was Zion. They had Zion coming back. He had played great. Elite Eight, yeah, it's a failure. You had 2 All-Americans. You had 2 of maybe the best players in the country. You've got the next kind of transcendent star people are calling for the next 10 to 12 years in the NBA. And Zion Williamson, a physical specimen we've never seen before. I do feel that it is a underachievement. I think they were underachieving even when Zion was hurt too. You look at, they got 4 top 20 players in their most recent recruiting class, and they lose one guy and they just kind of go down the drain pretty much and lose, I think, 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 or something along those lines. So they lose their center. They keep going. They make it to the Elite Eight, sure, but they should have beat Michigan State. They had more talent than Michigan State did. I'm not sure what to attribute it to. I'm not just going to sit here and say, oh, one and dones can't win titles. They don't have the experience. That seems kind of cliche, kind of beaten to a pulp at this point. I'm a guy who believes that talent prevails, but in this case it just didn't. And for that reason, I do feel that Duke's season was a failure as well.
So, this weekend we had a lot of good games this weekend. We had a great game between Virginia Tech and Purdue. Texas Tech just looked basically really dominant out the whole time. Anything particular that you want to hit on that happened this weekend?
You mean any of the games in particular?
Yeah, or any player performance, anything.
Well, I tell you what, Carson Edwards, he really impressed me. I mean, I don't think he's going to go on to be the next Steph Curry or anything like that. That would be kind of outlandish to kind of call anybody becoming that. I mean, look at how Steph Curry's transformed the game, but the things that he did over the weekend were impressive. That Purdue and Virginia game, that was probably one of the best college basketball games I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. The half court to tie the game and send it to overtime, and then just the whole game in its entirety was impressive for me to watch. I really thought Purdue was going to win the game even coming in, but Virginia, they really answered the bell, I guess, based on previous tournament outings and their early exits and stuff like that. So to have them back in the Final Four, and I hope they can. If I'm going to be rooting for one team in this, it's going to be Virginia, just because I want to see this coach and this team finally win one after so much success that they've had in recent years.
Yeah, I thought that the best game of the tournament. Probably best game of the year overall. Just Virginia finally started shooting the basketball good, and that makes them a very scary team because they play great defense, allow like 58 points a game or something, and now they can score. So before the key was score 70, now it's score 80, and that might not be possible for the teams left. So, the Final Four is set. Like I said, we got Virginia, we have Texas Tech, we have Michigan State, and we have Auburn. Let's rank these teams 1 through 4 for me.
It's tough. I'm going to go Virginia 1, Texas Tech 2, Michigan State 3, and then Auburn 4. Auburn's hot right now. Here's the thing. I'm just going to go ahead and start breaking down the matchups. Auburn and Virginia, then you have Texas Tech and Michigan State. I love these matchups. I feel like these matchups were just meant for each other based on what each team could counter at, kind of plays off their strength. Like their opponent takes away something from the other team, but their counter strike or their second attack kind of fits well with the matchup is what I'm trying to say with both of these games. And I'm really excited to see that. Texas Tech, they got a lot of length. They play great defense. They've got tremendous athletes. And, the guard from Michigan State, his name's slipping my mind right now. With Michigan State, they really rely on Cassius Winston, even Nick Ward down low sometimes. And Texas Tech, they really control the paint with all their length and athleticism, and they're going to be able to shrink the floor on Cassius Winston. So, at least I think they should, because I thought a lot of that stuff would happen in a similar fashion against Duke, even though Duke, has issues with depth and they are a little undersized compared to Texas Tech. But I thought Duke would be able to implement the same kind of strategy on defense and hit those same weak spots for Michigan State, or exploit those weak spots, or whatever the case may be. But I do believe that will happen against Texas Tech. They've been a tremendous defensive team, and they're an extremely athletic team. And then with Auburn, Auburn's a team that can get up and down the floor. They play really tough physical defense. The thing is, Auburn, to beat Virginia, they're going to have to hit threes. And Virginia, I believe, on the season has held teams to 28% or less in almost every game, if not every game, for their average on the season. So if Auburn can't get the three going, we already know what Virginia does as far as defense. But the thing is, Auburn has a great defense too. And at times, in the past, Virginia struggled offensively. And this year, they're definitely above that. Their typical threshold or baseline, but they're still not an outstanding offensive team. They're definitely good. They're definitely capable, no doubt. But as far as being elite, like a top 10 kind of offensive efficiency team, they are not. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm going to have Texas Tech and Virginia meeting each other in the national championship game. I think Virginia is going to be able to squeeze Auburn on defense and then pull it out on offense. And I believe the same thing will happen with Texas Tech. They're just going to swallow up and shrink the floor against Michigan State, and they're going to do a good enough job to score points on offense. And those are going to be the two teams that meet in the title game.
All right, well, that's what's your analysis of the tournament. Yep. So before we move on to first on the fly, I ask you, we're going to go back to the matchups real quick. Texas Tech, Michigan State, Big Texas Tech. How close do you feel the game's going to be? Like, what percent chance would there be for an upset?
An upset. Honestly, if I'm feeling an upset, I'm feeling it between Auburn and Virginia. I mean, Auburn could just get. They could get accidentally hot. You know what I mean? Like they're a team that could just hit contested threes, and if they just hit contested threes and they show up on defense, there's a very real recipe that they could win this game. I just think Texas Tech is going to be able to close off too many driving lanes and control the paint defensively for Michigan State to win. That's just how I see it. So I think that Auburn versus Virginia is the more likely upset of the two.
So you think the gap between Texas Tech and Michigan State is larger than that of Auburn and Virginia?
I do.
Interesting. Okay.
Have you seen the spreads? I haven't seen the spreads.
The spread on Monday, Michigan State was giving up, I think, 2.5 points.
Okay.
I think Virginia was giving up like 5.5. So if you like
really?
Texas Tech is getting plus in that too. So you think they're going to win? You should probably go out there and bet Texas Tech to win.
Yeah.
That's what I
might actually.
So I did. All right. Now we go to Let's on the Fly. This segment where I ask Fletcher 3 questions. He doesn't know what they are. You have to answer them all on the fly. First question. Fletcher, this year, the best NBA prospect in the Final Four is Jarrett Culver, who we're actually going to scout later. And he is a lottery pick. Might be in the top 10, probably in the top 10, not the high 10. Do you think it's going to be a trend going forward of having fewer superstars in the Final Four?
It's hard to say. I mean, it really shouldn't when you think about it. Like I said before, talent is what prevails. And I know people want to say experience, leadership and stuff like that, but ultimately talent should prevail. I'm just going to say no, even though maybe some recent years have indicated otherwise. You look at Villanova and teams like that who have won, and then, upperclassmen-led teams like Kemba Walker and some of those Connecticut teams that made deep runs. So, I don't know. I'm going to stick with no, solely because I believe talent prevails, and that's why.
Okay, that was only a yes or no question without a long answer. Just kind of want to hear your opinion on that. Next question. Who will have more titles before their retirement and or death? John Calipari or Coach K? And we'll do it from right now until they're done coaching. Get both on lifetime contracts.
Well, Cal's got him beaten age by a lot, so I'm going to go with Cal.
All right. Pretty easy one there for you.
Yeah, I mean, his window seems to be open for a lot longer, barring anything crazy happening.
All right. And last question. Russell Westbrook last night got 20-20-20 game.
Yeah.
I know we're going to call that for like a slang term, but I guess we can figure one out. Do you think in his career, Russell Westbrook needs a title in order to, say, be an icon of the game more so than a player who has one like Dwayne Wade? So I guess the question is, who do you think would be more memorable, a player with several championships or Russell Westbrook?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to need a title to be validated, in my opinion. It's like I've said before, what Westbrook has done is impressive. I don't know how valuable it is. I mean, his team gets ousted in the first round of the playoffs, so they typically don't make the playoffs. He's only been to the finals one time ever. It doesn't look like he's going to be going back anytime soon either. He's impressive, no doubt about it. And when I say impressive, that 20-20-20 game, I've only ever seen that done by myself on 2K once. So, yeah, that is really impressive. I don't know how valuable it is, and therefore I don't know how much it's going to validate his legacy. Yeah, he's going to have to win at least one title. Otherwise, I feel like guys like Dwayne Wade or Durant or, LeBron, whoever, guys who have won multiple titles, will be viewed more highly than he will, I guess.
Well, we'll probably get into an argument about that here in a few seconds. But that question actually had a 1B, depending on your answer to that. So the 1B is, whose career would you rather have? Robert Ory's or Russell Westbrook's?
Oh, Russell Westbrook's. He signed a much bigger contract. But Robert Ory, I mean, he's hit some big shots, but he just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Like that one with the Lakers. Kobe or Shaq, one of them put up a shot just outside of the lane, hit the back rim, bounced out to Robert Ory. That's how he hit that clutch shot with the Lakers. One time with the Spurs, he hit a big shot. He happened to be on the weak side. Ball found his way to him, shot it, put it in. And then in Houston, he won a couple titles there with Clyde Drexler and Hakeem Olajuwon while Michael Jordan wasn't playing. So he's a guy who really benefited from being in the right place at the right time more than anybody. It seems like in NBA history almost. Give him credit. He hit the big shots, even though he didn't really ask for it or demand it or anything. He hit them, and then he happened to be there while they were winning as well. But Russell Westbrook's career, Robert Ory's a marginal player who happened to win 7 titles, in all honesty.
Yep. So now we're going to the part where I'm going to try to convince you that Westbrook did not need a title about his career.
All right.
So, during your little spiel about why he needed a title out of his career, I thought of 3 players. George Gervin, Karl Malone, and John Stockton. None of them have titles. I think it'd be insane to say that none of them are validated in their career. I mean, Westbrook had now averaged all 3 years in a row with no number 4. Might not be done again past him. And that's an insane mark. And then I started to think about why titles are important, and I don't think they've really been that important until recently. Basically, since Tom Brady started winning them when he was like 100 years old and I had 6, and since LeBron James has become, even on Jordan's level of a talent standpoint, everyone's talking about how titles are important. So I think titles might just be a recency thing with like the new generation of thinking, because people are afraid to say LeBron's better than Jordan. People are this one of Tom Brady, the greatest thing ever, because he has 6 Super Bowls. So, for those reasons, and the fact that no one's going to say Stockton, Malone, and Gervin are not validated, I think your argument was wrong.
Well, I mean, they could be Hall of Famers for sure, but, John Stockton, Karl Malone, George Gervin, they're not any, and Charles Barkley, you can keep naming them, they're not in really any greatest of all time conversations. LeBron never got up to the Jordan level until he won 3 titles and went to, 8 straight finals. So, I mean, the only reason some people talk about Bill Russell being as great as he is because, he's the greatest champion in North American sports history. Titles clearly validated him. Titles mean a lot, obviously, to Tom Brady and his success over Joe Montana now, even though, Joe Montana's numbers, I guess. It's tough to say that one. I'm not a football guy. I'm not going to talk about that one.
Okay, that's fine.
But I mean, here's the thing: LeBron was great. We knew he was awesome, but he never got put in the breath of Jordan until he won 3 titles and went to 8 straight finals. So I mean, titles do something to your career. He can be a Hall of Famer, but as far as being an all-time great, it's going to be hard to do that. I mean, Oscar Robertson won a title. I'm not so sure how people viewed him with or without the title. LaMarcus Aldridge, Hakeem Olajuwon was viewed in that same kind of plane, and then he won 2 titles, and now he's arguably one of the greatest centers ever. Titles do a lot for you.
Mm-hmm. No, they definitely do. They definitely do. But, so, getting in the Hall of Fame isn't validation enough for you? In your personal Hall of Fame, you wouldn't have those guys in it?
Well, I mean, anybody gets in the Hall of Fame for basketball, so, I mean...
Yeah, but this isn't just any guys. It's fucking Karl Malone.
Right.
It's not Grant Hill here.
I mean, if you want to talk about the greatest pick and roll ever, I guess that's Karl Malone, but... I mean, he's the second all-time leading scorer, and if somebody said Karl Malone's the greatest basketball player ever, you'd be like, dude, no, absolutely not. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Alright, well, I guess we'll have to agree to disagree on this one, because we're a little pressed for time here. So now we're going to our next segment. The Wizards GM was fired at some point in time. How irrelevant are the Wizards? I didn't find out about this till this morning, but they told me about it. I didn't think to look up his name, so I don't know his name either. But, so, I talked about it today. The Wizards, up until, like, maybe last year, maybe a year before that, were on the rise of being one of, like, a team that could be a power in the Eastern Conference. John Wall is playing about as good as you could imagine. Beal is coming into his own. Even Otto Porter just got a big contract and is playing really good. So basically, let's start with what happened to the Wizards.
Well, first off, his name is Ernie Grunfeld, and he has actually been there 16 seasons, sorry. He's been a long-time GM and president of basketball operations. He's done a fairly good job, you know. I mean, he got Gilbert Arenas, Larry Hughes. He had Marcin Gortat, Wall, Beal. You know, he's made moves and kept them afloat for a very long time, and he balanced a rebuild while still staying somewhat competitive, you know. The 76ers rebuild and other teams have gone way down to come way up. The Wizards never really did that, and they're a team that's kind of been what if, or what could have been almost. Sure, they've had some key injuries, but I think it's time to kind of hold him accountable. You know, they've been kind of middle of the pack for a long time. He's done all he can to keep them there and keep them going up, but they've been saddled this year with injuries, and so I think the Wizards just decided it was time to move on and find a new face, find a new direction to take the team in. One thing you have to be concerned with is, though, the guys who are already there, kind of what their plan is to do with them now. I'm sure they're looking to move Beal. No way they're moving Wall. I'm sure almost every piece is expendable. You even have to wonder about Scott Brooks' future as well. You know, when a GM comes in and he doesn't have his guy as a head coach, you know, you're on a very short leash. You look at a guy like Hugh Jackson. He was not hired by what was his name, Joe or John Dorsey or whatever his name is.
John Dorsey.
Yeah, by the Browns. The Browns had their best season in forever, and they still fired not only the head coach but the offensive coordinator as well. So when the GM doesn't have his guy as the coach could be on the out too. So Scott Brooks could be fired or let go in the offseason or in the early stages of next year. So there's going to be a lot of overturn with the Washington Wizards. I think that's the biggest story to take away from this.
So back to the GM, when do you think he finds another job? Or do you think he'll get another job, I guess?
Basically, if he wants another job, he'll get one. He was the GM and president of basketball operations for 16 years. He did a tremendous job for a long time, keeping them afloat. They never tanked. They never went too far down. Like you said, at one point they were showing a lot of promise, but key injuries, other teams improving, kind of derailed their hopes and dreams pretty much. And I think it was the right move. I think it's time to hit the restart button, start fresh, and see where you take the direction of the team now.
All right. Yeah, it's actually the Wizards because I really like John Wall. It's unfortunate he had that freak accident where he tore his Achilles earlier this year. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was really. I like the team with him, Bradley Beal. I like both of the guys a lot, but like you said, that's probably going to be broken out because Bradley Beal is going to be a guy that teams want to trade for, and he'll be expendable because he's on an expiring contract and John Wall is expensive.
Yeah, and you're not going to move John Wall. I said earlier this year, I'm like, you can't be a team with no identity. You've got to do something. You've got to be all in or all out on something. They should have moved Beal and Wall when they had the opportunity during the trade rumors back early in the season, the first third of the season. They didn't do it. Now they're stuck with Wall. They've got Trevor Ariza. They've got Otto Porter. Actually, they moved off Otto Porter. So that was pretty good. They can come off the Jabari deal, but they're stuck with Wall. No one's going to take that, and they could have been a completely different direction now.
Do they still have Dwight Howard?
They do have Dwight Howard, but I believe he's just on a 1-year deal at this point.
Okay, I didn't know about old Dwight there. So now, back to the NBA season. It's winding down. We got a couple weeks left. All within playoff teams, all decided. What team most surprised you out west? Rather they made it to the playoff spot or just missed it, that's not named the Lakers?
Well, there were two things that kind of surprised me. One, the Denver Nuggets. I did not see them coming out to be what they were this year. Before the season started, you said if you had a gun to your head and you had to pick one, you gave me like 4 or 5 teams. One of these teams to make a top 4 seed. Who would it be? I said the Nuggets. No way did I ever think that they would be fighting for a 2 seed this late in the year. So I've got to say I'm surprised by that.
Fine for 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean 1-2 seed. Who knows? There are a handful of games left, but a lot can shake out in that Western Conference as far as seeding. But the next thing that was surprising to me, and it was really a pleasant surprise, is the Sacramento Kings, they were fighting for a playoff spot most of the year. And, well, actually, hold on. Before I get to that one, the Clippers went into full tank mode and then still managed to lock up a playoff spot. That blows my mind. I was for sure they were going into the lottery. But the Sacramento Kings, I did not see them being this competitive this year. They really made a jump from last year to this year. Their young guys really showed out. Marvin Bagley's played really impressive. So the Nuggets, the Clippers, after they moved off Tobias Harris and several other players, and the Kings have all been surprises to me one way or another this season.
All right, and now the Eastern Conference. All the spots are decided except for the last three. With only 5 games left for most teams, only 4 teams will have a spot at the 3 teams. They're all within 1 game of each other. Pistons, Nets, Heat, and Magic. The Magic are currently a team out of the playoffs. But in 2 weeks or 1.5 weeks, how long it is, who's the odd man out?
Well, I'm going to hand it to the Magic for making this jump that they have. I was for certain we were going to see a team that looks similar to that of Phoenix with the Orlando Magic, and we haven't seen that at all. The fact that they're even this close to being in the playoffs is really a success when you compare it to, or when you take it relative to recent years. I got to think the Pistons, Nets, and the Heat, though, are going to make the playoffs. They've got the most talent or, the most experience, whereas the Orlando Magic, I just don't think they're ready yet. The Pistons, they've got Blake Griffin, who this year has been, a top 20 player in the NBA. The Detroit Pistons have a dominant center, Andre Drummond. The Nets, Spencer Dinwiddie, who is also a candidate for Most Improved Player of the Year. D'Angelo Russell, All-Star, candidate for Most Improved Player of the Year. Jarrett Allen, who's an ultimate rim defender. And then the Miami Heat, they've been surprisingly competitive. They're very strong on defense. They have a very young, athletic team outside of Dwayne Wade. So, and then they've got a coach, and they've got veterans there who have done it before. So, those 3 teams, for those reasons I listed, I think are the teams that will make the playoffs. I think the Orlando Magic, as good a season as they've had, they will be the last team out.
Dude, the Miami Heat, what was LeBron's first year in Miami? 2011.
Yeah, 2010, 2011 season. Yeah.
During that season, and seeing how that team kind of underperformed in the third season, lost in the finals. Did you imagine that Eric Spoelstra would be coaching Miami Heat still in 2019?
No, it's kind of impressive to see. At one point during that stretch with LeBron, Wade, Bosh, and LeBron approached Pat Riley to talk to him about maybe taking over the role as coach for the team, and he just shut it down completely. That's a case of the ultimate case of a GM or president of basketball operations having their coaches back and forcing something to work and saying we're going to side with our coach rather than players who might be there temporarily.
Yeah, I remember I wrote a paper in high school. It was a current event paper or whatever about why Eric Spoelstra is going to be fired because he can't handle coaching 3 superstars. But that was, I guess, the most wrong current event paper of all time.
Hey, it happens to the best of us. Pat Riley said that was the one dynasty he wanted more than any other, whether it be in LA as a player, LA as a coach. Never really run in New York. He had a couple chances. But then, he said that was the one dynasty he wanted more than anything. And I guess he got it in some extent, but it could have gone a lot longer.
Yeah. And then we got 3 championships. I think have been much more validated, but 2 still very good. 4 straight finals is also very impressive.
Huh.
So now we're going to our scouting portion of the show. This week we're going to scout the only star in the Final Four, Jarrett Culver from Texas Tech. My internet's being stupid. I can't load his stats for you, but basically this is what he is. He's going to get you about 17.
I can give you his stats.
This year
he's getting 19 points, 6 rebounds, and almost 4 assists a game. So, and he's shooting pretty well from the field. He shoots 38% from 3, and then 46% from the field. So, definitely more than acceptable for a college guard.
Yep. He's 6'5", right?
He's 6'5". It says here is 195. He could be 205 for all we know, though.
Yeah. So 6'5", long, athletic. Shoots the ball okay. Don't know how he'll do it at the next level. Very good at scoring in the lane and driving in the lane. And I didn't know he had that many assists a game, but that's also a nice number to have there, too. I think outside the top 3 guys, a lot of this draft is going to be role players, guys who can play along with superstars. but can never really lead a team at any point in their career. But I think he could have a very nice long career. Fletcher, what do you think about Jarrett?
Well, real quick, actually, I gave you the wrong stat for his 3-point percentage. He's actually shooting 32%. I was reading the year before.
Oh,
he's
okay, so not great at all.
32 it's okay. He's shooting 48% from the field though this year, so that's an improvement. You're just kind of trading one for the other. Mm-hmm. But Texas Tech, they've had good teams here recently with this new coach, and he's really kind of recruited athletes and taught them basketball. And then you see this guy named Jarrett Culver here, who's kind of come in already kind of a polished game, but still athletic, and he's really flourished under this coach. And as a result, he's an NBA draft prospect, one of the best ones coming out. More than likely going to be a lottery pick. I would be surprised if he wasn't. And then, filling it up, he's got made it to the Final Four here. He is super, super athletic. He's a fun guy to watch play. He's going to need time to develop, though, when he gets to the NBA. You look at some of these guys we scouted, whether it be Ja Morant or Zion or RJ or Cam or whoever. Some of these guys we've scouted are going to be able to walk into the NBA and fulfill a role immediately. I think he's going to need some time. He is going to be I view him right now similar to that of Malik Monk when he was at Kentucky. Really impressed you, did a lot of things athletically, shot the ball well. You're like, Malik Monk, he's the full package. You look at this guy right now, the way he plays, you're like, he's the full package. He's still going to need time, though. He's got to build the frame. He's got to be a lot more consistent with the jumper from outside and the handle, I think. So he's got a few areas he's got to improve on. And once you get outside of the top 3, 4, 5 picks, this is the way it goes every draft for almost every sport. You just have guys who are talented, really talented in certain areas and gifted, but they got to have room for improvement in a handful of others. And I don't think it's any different with him.
So I looked online on ESPN today at the draft rankings, and I looked at this like 2 or 3 weeks ago too, and he was, I think, 10 or 11, and today he was number 5 in the draft rankings.
That is an example of recency bias.
Yeah, you would say, how much do you think the tournament has helped him in terms of draft stock?
Oh, it's definitely helped him, especially. Here's the thing. The later you go in the tournament, I know this is a news flash, people, but the later you go in the tournament, the fewer teams are playing, so the fewer guys you have to watch, and your performances will get magnified. You look at what Shabazz Napier did at UConn and how that propelled him. Kimba the same way. It's happened before. Maybe Jimmer Fredette, Steph Curry. It propels your draft stock if you play well because there are fewer teams to watch, and all the scouts kind of have eyes on you at that point. So I don't think he's going to go that high realistically, but I can see why it's propelling his projected draft stock.
Yep. So where do you think he will go in the draft?
He's more than likely going to go like 7 to 11, that kind of range. That's what I'm feeling. I definitely feel that Zion, RJ, Ja, Cam, Romeo Langford. I feel like there are a number of guys out there I would definitely just take over him. But with that being said, he's definitely very high up on the draft board still, no doubt.
Yeah, I think of all somewhere in that 8 to 11 range, 8 to 12 range. Late lottery pick for sure. All right, and once again, for this week, our game of the week has been omitted because the national championship game is this Monday. We're only 5 days away. Me, Fletcher, Drake, all Texas Tech winning it all. So therefore, Virginia is a mortal lock to win this thing. Because there's no way all they do is pick Texas Tech if Texas Tech wins. And this has been Volume 39 of Hysteria. As always, follow on Twitter and Instagram at The Saucy Pod. Listen to us on iTunes and Spotify. Listen to all our podcasts. From me, from Fletcher. As always, Dippers, stay saucy.